Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to Football Inc. We hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things you love. Thanks for coming over for the Spurs Talk Show. If you just have, and if you're just new here, you've been waiting around, sorry for the delay. Yeah, things happen. It's football. It's crazy. It's Monday. Set yourself in for an hour and 15 minutes of interesting insight into what's going on, more insight into what's going on Tottenham. Johnny's got his takes as well. Before we get into it, guys, smash the like, smash the subscribe. You know what to do with the notification bell button, and drop the comments too. Let us know your takes on it. By the way, if you are interested in the audio version of the podcast, it's available on Apple, and it's available on Amazon, and it's available on Spotify, even the video versions on Spotify. You can find the links in the bottom. Please do get over there and give us a 5-star review and a follow. Lastly, guys, the wonderful people at OK Jersey have sponsored us again for today's job. By the way, a load of you have been buying. I spoke to the guy. A load of you have been buying using the code FINK. Thank you very much indeed. If you do want to just use that QR code or go to okjersey.com, you know we like to follow second teams over here. If you do too, you can get them all on OK Jersey. I'm still waiting for an answer, by the way, for those of you in Australia around shipping. Leave that with me. I'll come back to you. But okjersey.com, 8% discount at checkout using code FINC. Johnny, how the devil are you, my man? Johnny's not. Johnny is here. How are you, Johnny? You froze.
Hi. I might have to change to my 5G as the signal seems to be absolutely shocking. How you doing, okay, Connor? Yeah, all good. All good. Lots to digest with this announcement. Listen, all I'll say, Sean, is that I've had a narrative since March. I've not moved an inch since then. I think they need the money for the projects, for the hotel and for Whitewebs, and I think that money will come in via naming rights without having to give away 1% of the business. The 100 million will just allow them to negotiate the transfer market, give them a cash flow in the immediate time. But I think over and above that, I think there will be even a partial sale or an eventual sale. Could be a rolling sale, but everything I thought would happen in March has more or less happened so far. I think we're at the next stage of the evolution of Spurs. Right now, the groundwork has been put into place, the turnkey operation for someone to come in and take us to the next stage. It's all very well winning off field, but you need to be a sporting success on field. And that's where either ENIC or said new investor would want us to be, because I think the rest of it will be a natural progression. Once you get the hotel, revenue up. Once you've got Whitewebs, the NFL, and the ladies' football team and that development, revenue up. So it's, they're not buying in at peak value right now. This isn't maxed out. And, I've said before, I believe QSI would love to be out of PSG. There's no real growth there other than the clothing brand. They can't buy the stadium. There's no TV rights. And I'm sure Saudi PIF are kicking themselves for buying Newcastle rather than buying Spurs. But yeah, I'm not a subscriber to this. We're not interested in a sale. But initially, I do think it's just naming rights and maybe up to 10% investment from another party.
Johnny, before I come to Connor, obviously I didn't know that Stavely or the PCP Capital Financial Capital had come out with a statement apparently this morning, a couple of hours ago, saying that they're not interested in they've got no intention. So we haven't heard the same thing from Firehawk yet. Just without trying to get into the politics, any concerns around getting in bed with people? I mean, look, for the most part, it's Taiwan and Hong Kong related, even though they're obviously they've got a massive American footprint. I can see people in the chat, and please leave the politics out. I forgot to ask you guys, by the way, on Spurs Talk Show, the politics was getting out of control. Please leave all that stuff out. But it's nothing to do with China, or at least, I mean, I don't know. But it's Hong Kong and it's Taiwan related businesses. These people, but mainly with an American footprint. Jonny, have you done any digging around on this guy, Dr. Roger Kennedy?
Not so much on him, more on Wing Fi and G. Better than Clinton and G, I'm sure. But I think, listen, Harvard graduate on the board of many financial institutions, and as you said, he's the CEO of Triller, not the Michael Jackson track and musical, but interesting enough, they're in sports, sport broadcasting, bare knuckle fighting, Eredivisie, Dutch football broadcast. They got the rights for that, and all sorts of fighting and wrestling and stuff like that. Minor stuff, but maybe they're looking to move more into mainstream. Look, the fact of the matter is, the old adage, what we used to say, Sean, careful what you wish for. Yeah. Careful what you wish for. I don't believe they will be the only party looking to dance with Spurs, if I'm brutally honest. They have relationships with the Qataris. They have relationship with Saudis. I know that Vinay has a fantastic relationship with the Saudis. When you look at Vinay and Charrington's black book, and I'm sure Connor will testify to this, it's like a who's who. I mean, his City Private Bank only deals with billionaire individuals based in the Bahamas. And, if they're willing to get into bed with somebody, he will have those connections. And I also think that the deal that was struck for the shirt deal, I think we mentioned this before, was one of the worst deals ever struck by Spurs. Apparently not done by Daniel Levy, by somebody else who's no longer at the club. But I can see Vinay trying to get out of that deal. AIA, I can see last year of the deal, Spurs may be looking to get out of that deal as well next year, because why would they hang around with Sonny no longer at the club? So I think there's lots of money, lots of big money deals that could properly propel Spurs upwards and onwards. I'm actually quite excited. I've got to be honest with you. I'm actually quite excited for the next, 2 or 3 years, although it's not going to happen immediately. I'm feeling very, very positive. And it's not just because Daniel's moved out the way. I just feel the club's very well positioned now. All the work that it's done by Daniel over the years as a football guy, shambolic. As a guy off field, superb.
Was he shambolic? Was he though? I don't think.
Well, I mean, look,
such a massive church.
No, listen, look, I just think like some of his decisions. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I remember certain people who were in football at the time saying to me, Daniel, a nice guy, but basically hasn't got a Scooby-Doo about football. And I remember having that same conversation 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years later. I just think that sometimes we have this conversation when you're a megalomaniac or you're a person that is always looking over the shoulder of people. Don't employ people to do a job if you're going to do the job for them. And I sometimes wonder whether that was Daniel's, downfall in the football sense.
Micromanaging a £4 billion valuation companies, 100%. Conor, I'm going to come to you in 2 seconds because I forgot to do the super chats the entirety of the last show. So let me get these ones done super quick. Appreciate Daniel Hoosen, big up to you. Where's Daniel, Jonny? Where is he, mate?
Darkest Peru.
Darkest Peru, but not for long. Temporarily at least. Appreciate you, Daniel. Thank you very much for the super sticker. Jonny's got to take the phone. We've got to get the old choo done. Appreciate you, Daniel, so much, mate. Always here, always supporting. Cat Font says, big up Jonny and Sean. Predictions for Saturday. It's Monday, mate. It's Monday. We'll do that on Thursday or Friday, the Predicciones game. Early prediction, though, 3 points. 3 points, my man. Appreciate you, Cat Font. Thank you so much. Daniel Hoosen's also come back in with another one, Deepest, Darkest Peru. Appreciate you very much, Daniel. Absolute legend, mate, with your support. Ulrika Johnson's here. He must be late. She must be drunk. She must be getting out of the bath and drying her bits. G&T down. Football Inc. on. know what we're talking about. Appreciate you very much, Ulrika. And Dean Law is in the house as well. Big up to you, Deanie. Always here, mate. Always here. You know, like Houdini does the old disappearing act. You do the appearing act whenever we are on a stream. We love you, Dean. Thank you so much, mate. Daniel Phil, big up to you as well, buddy. Also with a super sticker. Fun fact, if all of you put in a 99 pence super sticker, we'd have enough money to pay for the hotel room that I paid for to try to get hold of that bird on Saturday night, who then didn't turn up because her parents were telling her not to leave. And she's a 40-year-old lady. And yeah, anyway, less said about that, the better. Ulrika Johnson, again, come back in. Big up to you, mate. Thank you so much, miss. They are saying no takeover. They are not saying no outside investment for a minority stake. And that's a 100% relevant fact, my man. That is 100% relevant. Connor, let me ask you this. Thank you guys for the super chat. I didn't ask you this on the last show, and I'm not sure if I asked you at the previous time we spoke. Jonny just made the pertinent point there, right? Like the micromanagement of Daniel Levy. On the one hand, and it's a fair point, I'm happy to allow it, that he, by proxy of that, you know, made one deal at a time, the only thing that was possible. He probably also built those relationships, burnt the bridges, all those sorts of things. When you've got someone like that then suddenly departs, there's a lot of new roles that these other people that would traditionally have to do, but at Tottenham maybe haven't had the kind of mandate to take on, or maybe they had their hand held the whole time. Is that 100% a good thing that new people are going to move into that vacuum, or is there potential that could also create its own level of distress and disruption and unknowns that might end up being, you know, hurdles and roadblocks in the early stages?
Teething issues for sure, perhaps. You know, you see that all the time in business with these types of things. And as you say, there's, you know, I think when people associate Tottenham, they almost associate Tottenham with Daniel Levy. It was Daniel Levy's Tottenham, right? I think that was certainly in terms of the way that the club was run. So I think for sure there could be a bit of that. I think we've discussed before. No, I think there's a couple of points. I think part of the issue with the model we had before was that it was a little bit alien compared to the way that most top football clubs run, in that the chairman was too directly involved. And I think that creates issues because, you know, when you are so invested because it's your own personal investment in the club and therefore you're looking to save every penny, I don't think that helps. And also, you know, bringing back to the context of ENIC's ownership, and Daniel would have known that ENIC weren't going to pump him money to help supplement, so it almost fed into his own mindset of having to feel like he was saving money. I don't think that's helpful. So hopefully we're now going to shift towards the more traditional model of the board set the budget, but the CEO and the director of football, hopefully whoever fills that role ultimately, is a bit more empowered to actually do the deals done. And it's more akin to, you know, at Liverpool, you haven't got John Henry getting involved in transfers. I wouldn't guess. I guess that it's Michael Edwards and the guy underneath him doing it. And similarly at Arsenal, Bert has got a lot more power.
But there will be an accountant involved in that stuff, though, right?
At the budget setting level, rather than the minutiae of every transfer, you know, getting involved, I think is probably the way. You know, Stan Kroenke is not on the phone with Crystal Palace negotiating the Eze deal.
Same with City. Probably the same with Newcastle. Probably the same. Well, the Newcastle haven't got a DOF at the moment, but probably. So are we saying like that Tottenham have just they were a smaller club, and as they've grown, they haven't grown into the size of the club that they've become?
I think that's right, and the size, and we've discussed this point about the size of the business, and you know, you compare it to other businesses, it wouldn't be the case necessarily that the CEO is right when it's a £90 million business. It's the right person when it's £3.5 billion.
Correct.
So yeah, I think there's definitely a bit of that, but you know, I think there will be some teething issues. It's the same argument why I made this argument before, that even if there was a takeover, I could, and this is someone who's very critical of him, I could have seen, you know, a lot of positives of keeping Levy about, right, for 12 months. You know, you tell him, so in that situation where the Qataris did a full takeover, you say, look, Daniel, you're not having anything to do with football anymore because, you know, we've got Vinay in place and we've got the money. You don't need to negotiate over £3 million. But you know what, we want to keep you around for 12 months because you are Mr. Tottenham. You know everything about the way that Tottenham run. And Chelsea made that mistake a little bit, I think, when Bowley first came in. They got rid of a lot of the legacy people, and suddenly, you know, it was a bit of a shit show to start with. So, yeah,
Daniel's going nowhere. Sorry, Connor. Daniel's going nowhere, mate. I said this right from the start, right? If he's pushed aside, it's only ever going to be to the property. Who do you think's been running the property development scenario across the road? The only thing that's stopped that has been delayed because of the finance. There's financing it. Same with the White Webs, same with the hotel. Daniel, I don't believe Daniel's ever going to relinquish that, because there's a lot of money to be made there. There's a lot of money to be made, whether it's a partnership or whatever. So I actually believe that Daniel's going absolutely nowhere in this scenario, whether it's with ENIC or with the people that buy out, who, as you quite rightly says, who knows the deal better? Who's been involved with it right from ground zero? Who's been involved with negotiating the White Webs deal?
When you say he's not going anywhere, what do you mean by that, Connor? Sorry, Johnny, what do you mean?
Well, I mean that I don't believe he hasn't gone anywhere right now, and he's just gone aside. I said, you know, for aesthetics, he's been pushed aside, he's been demoted, he's been got rid of. It's come as a shock to him, but
he doesn't have a role at the company anymore.
I don't believe in 1 minute. He's 100% involved in that property deal.
That's where it's surprising to me that they didn't give him just a non-exec role. You know, just make him a non-executive director so that he still attends the board meetings of Tottenham Hotspur Group where they're going to be speaking about these types of things. But he's, you know, no longer that executive chairman. He's completely removed from the football side of things. I think it's surprising to terminate him completely as a director and not even give him that non-exec role on the board. And that's what's come as a surprise to me.
That's right, Jimmy. Yeah, Jimmy, I talk bullshit. That's what.
Don't worry about the chat, Johnny. But listen, I hear what you're saying, Johnny. And obviously we know people that also, you know, are close and everything, and they disagree with my take, and they very much agree with yours.
Yeah,
we were having this conversation last one, and you're more than likely going to be right, and I'm more than likely going to, you know, like I got no idea, but to me, mate, my instinct tells me that there's more going on, that there's more of like a sort of something that's like a little bit of shenanigans, like somehow that the Lewises they might be connected as a family, they might have all of their history and their relationship, and they're all overlapped, and it's very interweaved and Tavistock, and I get all that stuff. But, you know, we spoke about this on the last show, Johnny, mate. Like, it feels like a little bit of a succession, like there's a power struggle, a vacuum, and that sometimes out of that, when you look at all the other stories, if the media are entirely wrong, if the Sky News interview, the Sky News one that was talking about the sources, if that was bollocks, and also Matt Law's story was bollocks, and also the other story that came via the Times, if all those three stories are not true, then all of those three story makers are either making things up for clicks, which is entirely plausible, right? Because it's a hot topic, or they're being used to you know, push narratives out that kind of set a precedent with regards, you know, in my opinion, the way you can interpret it is the Lewises are trying to sit there and say the reason why there was no ambition that was the old regime and Daniel Levy was responsible for it.
Right.
Either Daniel Levy is being represented as the sacrificial pig, or he actually is the sacrificial lamb. Right. And either way, neither of those two situations would go down well with Daniel Levy. And so that's where, whilst I acknowledge that I don't know anything, my gut instinct tells me that there's more to it than just it's all been known and everyone's convivial and everyone's okay with it. I don't think Daniel Levy is happy to be told he's no longer in charge of his baby. I think that there's more of a there's more, like, I don't know, angles, more nefarious kind of things going on than we're led to believe.
I mean, he talks like he owns the business, like he is Tottenham Hotspur, when really he's a shareholder of Tottenham Hotspur. He's not the controller of it. He's the custodian of Tottenham Hotspur, and a very good custodian off field. On field is another matter, but I think that this serves all purposes, removing Daniel from the from the board, removing him,
and losing his money.
He's not losing his money. I listen. Ultimately, he wants the sale. I just think that you know, the kids coming in now. Listen, Joe Lewis, he's probably doesn't even remember who he is and what he is at times. He's not particularly well. We know that all the shares were transferred to the trust in the Bahamas. I just think that now that the kids, maybe if they want to have some more control. But Charrington, look, I'll say it again, Charrington is a financial heavyweight, and Vinite is, he has great connections. Just don't believe that they've just come in by chance, and Daniel has got no clue about it, doesn't know about it. He knows exactly who Peter Charrington is because they live on the same estate in the Bahamas. He knows exactly who
I hear
he
you
is.
on that, but Daniel Levy has given up his 3 million. But the narrative, Johnny, is that the narrative that was put out by the media that we've got wind of, and whether it's true or not, who knows? No idea. The narrative was that the Lewises were pissed off that there were deals that could have been struck over the last 2 years that didn't happen because Daniel Levy always wanted to make sure that he got his. He was going to be carried on as some sort of level of ownership, whether he's not involved or otherwise. He still wanted his salary. He still wanted his salary. This eventual outcome that is then at the same time met with all of these other leaked stories via the Times, the Sky News, and also the Telegraph. And as much as Matt Law talks a lot of bollocks, like I say, there is an angle here to sit there and say I could get on board everything apart from the fact that he has lost his role and he doesn't get paid anymore. Doesn't get paid. And then now, like you could easily come to the conclusion that the Lewises are pissed off that every time there was a chance of an investment, which is what, Johnny, you and I have been talking about for forever, every time there was a chance that Daniel Levy cock-blocked it because he wanted his ends. He doesn't have those ends anymore. So I'm not sure why he would be happy with that.
See, this is where Sean, I think, sorry, John, I think this is where I think you land on or you're maybe landing on the final position, which is there's been a power struggle. If you believe what the media is reporting, there's been a power struggle and they've had to push him out. I think he's agreed to go out because my theory is that they've agreed to sell Levy's share, to be honest. That's what I think is going to happen in this. If you ask me to put my hat on what I definitely think is going to happen.
But Levy wanted to stay, though. Look, the previous noise that was out there was that Daniel went to Joe Lewis and said, "Can I have more money? I need more money." And Lewis said, "If you want it, it has to come out of your side, right, Johnny?"
Well, yes. But perhaps that's where you get to, right? And this was what we were discussing earlier, Sean, which is perhaps Enoch, now that it's not necessarily Joe Lewis and it's the kids, maybe they are fed up, or they haven't done it enough, but they're fed up of the potential. They know they're going to have to front some more cash, right? Because even if you ignore the transfer piece, to Johnny's earlier point, there's a whole host of development that needs to be funded in some way. So there's definitely going to have to be some cash fronted.
100%.
They know that Daniel benefits from that cash being fronted by Enoch because every time it does, his share increases a little bit as well. But he's not finding the cash himself. So maybe they've gone, look, we're not willing to do that anymore for you. Daniel's life might have also changed, as we were discussing earlier. You know, he's 64 now. He's got kids in America. He might also go, do you know what? I'm ready to take a step back. I agree to sell my stake. Because to your point, there's not a lot of logic from his side. It has to be either two things. That I think he either has to have agreed to it, which I think is more likely given how interlinked the families are, or there has to be a power struggle.
That's the only connection, though. The only thing that supports that whole thing, the only thing that supports that logic is the interconnection and the history of the family.
And the fact that when you own more than 25%, you don't want to make that's a meaningful number, as we were discussing earlier, because they can't force him to sell his shares either. So without it being really messy. So, it's in everyone's interest for this to go a certain way. And so this is why I think there's an agreement that this is his time to exit. They'll get a minority investor in to take in his percentage. The Lewis family then get to benefit from the upside of that new investor coming in, who actually is going to front some cash. and Daniel gets to go and move out of this country and not have to suffer the tax implications of staying here. Is the way I see it, mate.
I agree, Connor, that that's my take. But I actually think for the capital intensive projects, they only need to sell the naming rights to be able to fund the projects, because according to reports, most of that money will need to be paid up front for the naming rights. Not all of it, obviously, but a large proportion of it. And that will fund the hotel and White Webs, and the 100 million projected to be invested by ENIC will give them cash flow and the ability to go again in the January transfer window, plus the amount of money that's left over to spend that we didn't spend in the summer window. I do think, though, that despite the noise and despite the contrary, that they will eventually sell, whether it's a rolling buyout, starting with a 10% stake, rolling up with a set get out fee. I'm not sure, but for me, you protect too much. And let's be honest, it's the easiest thing in the world to spread rumours. It's the easiest thing in the world. You can just anonymous sources say it's the same with transfers and stuff. So it's not difficult. Daniel's passing comments, not sure. I just think that that comments by Daniel at the overlapping interview, just coincidentally, when I'm gone, they'll appreciate, what I said, and he's gone. What a coincidence is that? Also, the fact that Simon Jordan's interview with Daniel Levy, that was done a while ago. He's good mate, and it's been held off and held off and held off. Now, how much is that interview worth now to how much it was worth 2 weeks ago? It's worth a lot more money now.
Depends on the content within it, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think
if the content's about him still being in charge, him still all that shit, it's worthless, right? But if the content's about some home truth,
I get you, but I believe that interview was done quite a considerable time ago. And why were they holding off? Because I believe that Daniel knew these talks have been going on. I don't believe for 1 minute that Vinay, Peter Charrington, and Joe Lewis and all his representatives, and there's been no conversation about Daniel's position. There was an American company that came in. I can't remember if you remember the not an audit, but there was a company that was out there that was doing an audit on Spurs and coming back with a report on the company and the state of affairs. And obviously that wasn't very favourable. So maybe that led to the speeding up of what's transpired. I actually think it's an exciting time for Spurs overall. I just think it's like handing over the baton personally to the next incumbent. And all we got to make sure is that the person coming in is not qualified, but is the type of person that we want. As this is why we always say, be careful what you wish for, because we don't want a Jim Ratcliffe, we don't want Glazers, we don't want someone who has to take out massive loans to purchase the company. So we shall see. I'm not sure. I mean, what are you thinking, Connor? Private equity or oil money?
I'd prefer oil money if you gave me the choice, because I think they've got a different relationship with money, and I think more likely is private equity money. Sean and I were chatting a little bit about that earlier, because there is that natural link with the NFL piece with us, and just what we've seen in terms of that huge growth in private equity money in football anyway. If there's probably, perversely, there's more suitors from a private equity perspective, isn't there, than than from a Middle Eastern perspective, given some of those already involved in football, and then you have to be careful with how you structure, etc. So, yeah, I think it'll be that way.
I was just going to say, do you think that's based on the fact that the huge valuations on NFL franchises now that they see?
Yeah, I was just talking about that on the last show. Like I'm saying, I think the reality is that my dad said it specifically. He said, you always talk about people getting priced out at 4 billion, and he's right. Like he goes, you are limiting access to capital, but there's a hell of a lot of others that see that price point and think of it as a pricing in mechanism because of the access to a global brand, a team that already has an NFL pitch, the obvious next iteration of that, if they can get the white webs thing done with the training ground and PE capital, those guys are paid for the now, the venture funds, all those sorts of things, but they have like a 5, 10, 15-year horizon. And so like the next iteration on their payouts comes through in far more detail later on. And so they can come in and not be put off by the fact that you're paying premium valuations for a football club. If you get hold of the entire entity of ENIC, if you do get hold of that whole thing, even if it's not going to happen immediately in the short term, if you get hold of that as a 10, 15% now with a gradual kind of lift, then they're still happy to do it because in a year's time, nothing will have changed with the NFL situation. The franchise that's coming to London at some point, and it will happen at some point, it's not going to happen next year or the year after. But if you gently raise the revenues and gently raise the valuation, you're not pricing in for perfection immediately like you do with certain football players, for example. You get to do that over a staggered period. And so if the ultimate outcome, just looking at Tottenham's revenues and football revenues, you get that Netflix for sport thing. Obviously, that's a 4x on the multiples of media broadcast money. But on top of that, you get access to the valuations of all of the NFL, the bigger picture stuff. And as I said, I think it's 12.5 billion for the Dallas Cowboys, and at the very bottom end, the Jacksonville Jaguars or Arizona Cardinals that don't have the same sort of leverage. That's still 40% higher than what Tottenham Hotspur is valued at, right? Like the lowest. No, sorry, I think it's 5.6 according to most recent. Okay. But those things don't. So like the average is about 8.6.
Yeah,
and so, but generally speaking, those smaller ends of the franchise model, they don't have access to the same things that Tottenham Hotspur do. They don't have the same things access to what Dallas Cowboys do. What they do have is a loyal fan base, and they do obviously have that kind of global reach. But football has got all of that stuff on steroids, right? So if you're looking for just people that have got 4 billion in cash, you're filtering out a lot of people. But you're not going to get the John Texters of this world. But if you're looking for people that consider what Tottenham can be and what Tottenham Hotspur under the entire umbrella of a London NFL franchise, all of that stuff, they're probably looking at Tottenham Hotspur with the catalyst of being a monster player in Premier League football, which would require a hell of a lot of money on play, all that stuff that we want to see. And then you also plug in all of the other things with the NFL. You're talking about potentially in 15 years' time, 15 billion valuations. And so it's not off-putting to pay 3 billion now to get in on the front doorstep of the team that's going to be the host of the NFL franchise. It's mad multipliers.
Can I just ask a question here, right? You know what's quite funny? So Daniel went, what day was it? Thursday or Friday was
September. Yeah, the 4th.
What day was that?
That was Thursday, wasn't it?
Thursday. So Thursday he got sacked, and Monday we've had 2 bids. Well, apparently there's been 2. So they've held off. We're to believe that everyone's held off, and then 2 days after he's out, we've had 2 bids already.
No, Hang on a minute. That didn't. No, they were responding to the media speculation.
I know, but come on. Why were these?
Matt Law did try and speculate that it only happened since Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, just talk crap, mate. They just talk crap, and this
he doesn't know what that guy doesn't know.
I mean, Sean, just that quickly to that point. I mean, the one thing with private equity, I think they would be more open to that staggered takeover than oil money would be, because oil, your Middle Eastern oil money, they want 100% control from day one. Whereas in the private equity world, it's very, very normal to invest a little bit and then continuously sort of increase, because obviously your capital sort of gets called over time in that way. So, that might be more to Johnny's question about.
That's why I'm inclined to think that the more realistic of the two, mate, is the one that we probably don't want, the Triller lot.
There'll be others though, won't there?
I'm
There'll be
sure
others.
there would be, but like I just, when I put together all of, I'm what it's all speculation. So like, if it turns out that's not the case at all, people go, "You're in the mud." I'm not saying I know anything. I don't know anything. I'm just trying to put the kind of the chronology of the events that have happened, making it make sense, and thinking about the bigger picture. To me, private equity makes a hell of a lot more sense, unless the people that are in the Middle East also have the access to those areas and the sort of funding through that mechanism as well, of which wouldn't be a surprise, because just look at the PIF fund, right? They're involved in Clear Lake. They involved themselves in a whole bunch of different things that are all involved in all those different areas as well. They could just be standard deviations away from the norm, but just on principle and on paper, the one that makes more sense for a minority investment initially with a staggered approach would be, of those two options, it would be the geezer that's Asian but with an American footprint.
Can I just say here, I actually said a while ago that I thought if anyone was going to come in, it would be QSI, purely from with a staggered approach, because they could take 10% of Spurs and still be part of PSG without any complication. They have stated they would be looking to potentially leave PSG due to the fact that it's maxed out. As I said, can't own the stadium, no TV rights. So, you know, a 10% stake as Spurs rolling up, funding the housing development, funding the hotel, funding White Webs. Spurs have a relationship through Daniel and others, no doubt. Good friends with Vinay. He's friendly with the guys up at PSG. And so would Charrington, that maybe those were the people who would be best suited to relinquish their holding on PSG and move slowly into Spurs without any conflict of interest. But listen, look, it's all conjecture because we're here to fill the gap. I mean, the fact with QSI, they could come in and they could give us the naming rights. They could give us Qatar Air and give us a 10% investment. They could do both. There's so many avenues here. I just think that we're being told that there's absolutely no interest in selling the club. I'm not a buyer of that story. Potentially, really.
I think that's just a standardized official thing.
Correct.
That guy Wing and G, he was on the. I think it was it what company is it? Is it Falkland Oil and Gas he's on the board of a company, a Cameroonian oil and gas exploration company, and I remember trading those like 2010-11, and that company was always mired in takeover speculation and also corruption and all these things, right? So they basically they buy massive plots of land in various parts of the world. They're currently operating in Cameroon. That company was always, its previous entity, the previous versions of it were always getting linked with takeover speculation. The price would shoot up and down, all that stuff. But the standard thing is the club is not, or the company's not for sale. There's no interest in any takeover because it's just a leverage thing. As soon as you say it is, then you're considered an insider, and the share price rockets up, and then you're not allowed to sell your stock anyway because you're then technically on an inside considered an insider for that takeover period. That's why they've given until October the 5th to come clean. Obviously, Stavely and her group have already come out and said we're not interested, so we know that one's done. By the way, she now can't make an official bid for the company for 6 months. So once you've come
unless
clean,
she's invited back in.
Yeah,
so
you can still get involved in minority things, but if you've made an expression of interest that has been officially referenced, and then they have 28 days to be able to come clean and say, are you going to do it or not? If you say you are or you're not, you're then I'm pretty sure you're then certainly if you are and it's rejected, but if you're not, you're then restricted from coming back in for the next 6 months. You're not allowed to make another bid. So. I'm pretty sure I'm right on this. There's no, once you've made an expression of interest and you've walked away from it officially, 6 months has to go by before Stavely can do anything more with that. She might come in with a small minority investment. The other group, though, they haven't clarified yet where they stand. So
there's an exemption, Sean, from that if Enix specifically invite her back in. So that's
yeah,
the
fair
only
enough.
way you get
Good
out
point.
of it.
Good point.
But yeah,
I'm sticking to my thing that Daniel is still there, involved, but not front and center. And I'll leave it at that. I think he still has plenty to offer the company. I said to you right at the beginning, I'm happy for him to move away from football, but still to be involved in the development of the off-field activities, where he's been a success, in my opinion. As long as he's away from the football aspect, and if other people have been brought in to sort that football aspect out and take us to another level, while Daniel is sorting hotels, white webs, and bringing in more revenue and more income to the club, I'm all for it, and I think that's where I'm going to lay my hat.
That's fair enough. We're all speculating. I don't know either. You're probably right. Certainly, the guy that we speak to off stream knows a thing or two, and he's on the same sort of page as you are. My personal vibe is that if you've given up your £3 million, and yet you were the reason, as the media have suggested, that previous investments, previous expressions of interest were curtailed, would fall over at the final hurdle, which is the reason why Charrington was brought in the first place. If that is all true, and then suddenly you're no longer suddenly you're no longer executive chairman, and you haven't had a different job, a different role been granted to you, and with that, you might still have your stake in ENIC, but ENIC don't take dividends out of the company anyway. And so if the reason why we didn't have previous investment before now is, as the media have suggested, that it was down to him always wanting his ends, and now he doesn't have any of that, he might still be involved in the property deals, mate, and his family connections might run deep and all that stuff. I'm just saying that the order of events in which we've been presented and the news that's out there doesn't suggest that story to me. It suggests that there's more disharmony than there is harmony. Connor, what's your stance?
Yeah, that's where I'm probably somewhere-ish in the. I use a similar logic path to you, Sean, in terms of like the dots not joining up and all of that stuff, but probably get to Johnny's conclusion that there's investment coming. So I'm sort of merging the two, which is I think Levy.
But then Levy's bought out. Levy's given up his 25, 20, whatever it is, 23% of Tottenham.
I think that's what's going to happen, and then potentially a phased takeover in 24 months or whatever. But the Lewises get to benefit in the short term from another uplift in valuation.
What will be interesting, but I've got to ask you this though: if he went cap in hand to Lewis a couple of years ago, and said, "I need money," and Lewis said, "I'll take it out of your side," he said no. That 150 million quid that was injected initially, or 150 the open sort of credit line, whatever it was, of which 100 million was taken. That came from ENIC, right?
ENIC, yeah.
So didn't then 30% of that come from Daniel Levy?
Well, yeah, but how the rumor is that in normally it would be exactly as you just described. So it'd be called for 30% of the capital, and the remaining would come from Joe Lewis. I think the rumor has always been that Joe Lewis has fronted all of the cash, always. In terms
but
of
without diluting Daniel.
Guys, he was in the city. He was in the city. I know for a fact he was in the city trying to raise finance. Okay, he didn't. Are we still losing sight of the fact, not fiction, that he appointed Rothschilds to sell and look for inward investment in the company because they needed capital. Right?
That's all statement.
Right? We can't just brush that to the side. We can't brush that to the side, right?
It's not being brushed aside. It's on the statement here.
I'm talking about the fact that the ENIC are now saying, we've got no interest in selling at all. So why aren't you? Why there's not a statement? We're no longer associated or tied with Rothschild's private bank.
They're still involved in it. Hang on, look, I'll show you now. They're still involved. Look, it says it here. Yeah, it says notice related to financial advisors, NM Rothschild and Sons, and Dixon Minto, which are authorised and regulated by the FCA in the United Kingdom, are acting exclusively for Tottenham and ENIC and for no one else in connection with the subject matter of this announcement, and will not be responsible to anyone other than Tottenham Hotspur and ENIC for providing the protections afforded to their respective clients and for providing advice in connection with the. It's not putting it to one side, Johnny.
2 years, I know, but 2 years, right? And that's, for me, it's a contradiction. You're saying you're not interested, right, in selling, but at the same time, you still appointed Rothschilds, who, when you appointed Rothschilds with the intention of finding investors to come into the club. And after 2 years of investors coming into the club, somehow or other they've been cock-blocked by Daniel's demands or the escalating valuation put on the club, and have fallen apart. Now, whether or not that's the reason why, between Charrington, Vinay, and the auditors or the American company that was brought in to analyse the company from top to bottom, have come to the conclusion that was one of the reasons. And he's aside. But as I said, I still believe that Daniel is involved in the business, just not the football business. Anyway, we shall see.
We shall see. But obviously, there's two different things, right? Like, so they're saying we're not for sale, as in, like, any takeover. It says it in the first couple of lines. Any takeover is for 100% of ENIC's stake in Tottenham Hotspur, right? And then by proxy of that, there's a forced sale of any minority shareholders. So people like Lubo will finally get his payout, depending on the price point per share. But that's only in a scenario where a full takeover happens. I think we're all on the same page here that the ideal scenario, at least in the interim, is injection of capital, and that's completely separate to sponsorship deals with regards to naming rights, right? Nothing can change with regards, like, the Rothschilds don't need to be involved for an injection of capital via a sponsorship deal. That's the sort of thing that Daniel Levy could organise, or whoever else, Vinay, whatever else, could do that by themselves. But if Rothschilds have been brought in, Jonny, as you've always said, and correctly so, then their instruction is to find either a full takeover. They're denying that they've had any interest in that, but more likely an injection of capital to take over some percentage of the shares that would dilute ENIC and also the minority shareholders in Sync. And that is still entirely plausible and possible and likely given this announcement. If they're not if you're just believing the story here, then they're not interested in the full takeover yet, but they are still looking via Rothschild for someone to come in and buy 20%, which plays into your cards around the QSI thing or whoever else. Stavely isn't ruling herself out of that. Neither is the other group either.
QSI have stated they want out of PSG. They want to sell up. After the 2.5-3 years of trying to negotiate with the Paris authorities about taking over the stadium and taking control of it and renovating it and turning it into a super stadium, they've fallen foul of that. There's no TV rights. French football TV rights are in the mud. There's nothing there for them, right? Whereas Spurs is everything for them. They can see growth. They can see much more glory in owning a Tottenham and taking them from where they are right now to becoming title winners or cup winners or Champions League winners with the huge revenue to back up their investment. You know, it's, as you say, it's already a cash cow, and it will be now with the 32 events. I mean, I'm not sure. I haven't sure what our turnover will be, but I reckon it could be 630, 640 with the 32 events.
We'll find out at the end of the month.
What do you reckon, Connor? With the 32 events, league football?
Yeah. You'll be approaching 630 to 650, something like that.
Record revenue,
commercial revenue growth. Yeah, and just to be clear for everyone in the chat, that's for 25-26, and not the set of accounts that will come out next. Yeah. The next will be
24, 25,
80, something like that, and then the year after will be 630.
With a big jump. Yeah, depending on how well we do. I mean, if you have a good early group stage, like
exactly, yeah, and the league
earn
position,
100 million.
Yeah. I mean, there's another interesting side point of all of this. Just bringing it back to football for a second, is what happens with the director of football, right? So they've put in place, obviously, this brand new structure in terms of, well, not brand new, but, formally made this new structure in terms of Charrington as the non-exec chairman, and then Vinay as CEO. I did notice in the statement when they announced about Levy stepping down, there was no mention at all of Langer. They did mention specifically Frank and that team taking the club forward, but Langer wasn't mentioned. There's also the fact that Paratici obviously was, Levy's man to some extent and someone Levy trusted. And Sean, we discussed this, didn't we, when the news first came out? It'd be interesting to see now whether they get rid of the pair of them and bring in a new director of football completely, which I could absolutely see happening.
I feel like Paratici's relationship with Daniel Levy was super tight, super close. I don't think Daniel Levy trusted anybody like he trusted Paratici. But if you're someone, let's run with this model, Jonny, that you correctly espoused, that Charrington's come in for a reason, right? He's come in with the reputation, he's come in with the connections, the relationships, all of those things. Does Vinay have a relationship with Paratici? Don't know, but it's certainly not documented. Does Charrington have a relationship with Paratici? Don't know, not documented. If the reason why Charrington was brought in, other than to be a fly on the wall to make sure that Daniel Levy couldn't cop block any negotiations and all that other stuff has fallen by the wayside and now we are where we are, they got rid of Donna Cullen, right? I know she was scheduled to retire at some point, but they delayed that for a year. Maybe that delay, by the way, was because Daniel Levy saw some sort of writing on the wall with regards a power struggle. He asked her to stay around for an extra year because she was her right-hand woman, always voted in her favor, goes to the game, all that bollocks. She's gone. He's gone. What's to suggest that Paratici and his reputation, by the way, he might be a fantastic DOF. He might know the Italian market sensationally well, but to pretend like he hasn't got a lot of, questionable marks on his resume for all the stuff that he's gone through. Daniel Levy stood by him, kept him on as a consultant while he was going through his ban. Now that Levy's gone and Donna's gone, there's enough. Again, speculation, none of us know. But for me, if I'm sitting there looking at the scenario, I don't think necessarily that the Paratici is going to be a nice guy.
Who made the statement that he's coming back?
No one has.
There's been no statement.
Not from the club.
Jacobs reported it, didn't he? That's been the only media report.
I think more than one, but yeah.
Yeah, the media have. The media certainly have, right? But like, if we're dismissing
the media, we're
dismissing a lot of the media stuff with regards to other stories.
I can say the other way around. Listen, I'll tell you something. If you're going with Johan Lange, God help you all.
No, right? I'm not saying we're doing that either. I think the point Colin was making.
I know there's a reason why. It's a reason why he got demoted at Aston Villa, right? And it wasn't because of his outstanding director of football prowess. Okay. What we do know is he's very close and very good friends with Thomas Frank. So there is a very good chance that Johan Lange will be kept on to keep Thomas Frank happy. But there's no guarantee that, if the Don Fabio comes back, that he isn't overseeing that, working in conjunction with Johan Lange.
I'm not saying that. I think Connor was saying the same thing, right? There was no statement about Johan Lange. So I think Connor's making the point: Lange's future isn't secure. And I was and I agree with both of you that he's not worth worrying about. But I think the extension of that was just my point was Paratici coming back is a media story, and it might be true. Again, probably will be. God, no, I'm not going to sit here. Please don't say I'm in the mud. I'm just literally just putting it out there as a talking point. But the Paratici's relationship with Tottenham Hotspur was founded primarily on a relationship with Daniel Levy. And Daniel Levy, we seen just before his departure, we saw all of his close connections also ousted from the club. You've now seen him ousted from the club. If we're believing the media on the Paratici story, then shouldn't we by proxy believe the media on all the other things that are suggesting that Daniel Levy wasn't aware of this and that he's been blackballed a little bit and sandbagged? And consequently, is there enough smoke there to sit there and have at least the conversation that maybe Paratici isn't the long-term intended reappointee by whoever it is that's calling the shot now?
Whatever your thoughts are on either of them, if you stack them up and look at the result from one and the result for another, I know which one I'm backing and which one I'm not backing.
Or would you take option 3, which might be Louis Campos or someone else?
Well, if he can bring someone top in, then that's a different conversation. But if I'm choosing between the two, it's one all day. But yes, I mean, if you're bringing in a top director of football with a very successful track record like Campos, and you're bringing him in, and you're stating you want to take Spurs to the next level, then yeah, 100%. But I think he's our man, Don Fabio, and if it turns out that it's Johan Lang, I'll be very worried.
Connor,
personally,
I think it'll be neither of them. Is my guess. I think they're gonna. I think maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think Langer not being mentioned in that statement is, sometimes it's what you don't say is more important than what you do say, and
yeah, 100%.
given that statement's talking about the footballing operations, they even mentioned Frank. If it didn't mention Frank as well, then I probably wouldn't be making the point. And then I think with Paratici, just what I know of Charrington and Vinay, I'm not sure they're going to want to get into bed with that formally. Now, that's not to say he might not continue in some sort of consultant type role as he has done, but I can see a world where there's a new director of football, and that's the way Vinay wants to make his mark in terms of really showing that he's in charge of the football
Connor.
operations going forward.
He bought in Edu, so
Johnny, 100%. Like if I've learned one thing from my career, is when a new person, female or otherwise, takes over at the top, not necessarily in the CEO role, but it happened at Gannett, it happened at MCP Media, it happened at Google, and it happened in Winterfloods and Close Brothers where I worked. When a new person comes in, they don't want to inherit what they got, because the reason why they're there in the first place is because what was going on previously wasn't working, and so they want to come in and land their own trademark. They want to put their own footprint on things. And I'm not saying that this is going to happen here, but to me, if you've made wholesale changes, and by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if like the Collicotts and all those sorts of people are also short-lived tenures at Tottenham. I don't know what their roles are necessarily in the kind of financial side of like the corporate sponsorship gigs, but like this has been a long, drawn-out process already, and we're 3 months into it, and every single day there seems to be more noise and news and speculation around someone else's future. Connor, I don't know if you ever looked into that Collicott's.
Yeah, I think Collicott will stay. He'll stay for a while because he's the CFO. So,
right, so too much changes can look chaotic.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And to be honest, like you don't get that much benefit from changing the CFO, really. In terms of the football side of things, he does the accounts, right? So, and he's been involved in, and to be fair to him, he was the one that was heavily involved in terms of the financing of the debt, along with Levy. So he did a good job on that. He's Enix's man from before as well. So I think they'll keep him for at least a period because, you want that continuity, and it's a role that's not that important in terms of the football side of things. But I agree with you. I mean, I think he's
new people don't come in
and they change their executive team. It's standard play.
100% standard, because you don't want to look at Scott Munn came in, and he got rid of Gabbanini, right? And he got rid of, obviously Paratici was kept, but in some proxy, probably an override by Daniel Levy on that one.
Destroyed everything, mate. He destroyed everything, Scott Munn. He came in and whitewashed all the good that had been done over the last fucking 18 months. He was an absolute fucking idiot. No wonder they got rid of him. I'm amazed he lasted that long. I used to call him Munn too clever, because everything he did, he just honestly, if you saw,
he was, and they got rid of him as well, right? When he came in, he picked his own team, right? And some of those are still here, others have gone. He's gone. It's not that much of a stretch to think that Vinay is going to want to come in and say, "I'm the CEO. I need people that even if he might be impressed by Paratici, and I'm sure Paratici's a wonderful salesman. I'm sure he's brilliant, but Vinay probably wants his own stamp." Right, it's natural. I wouldn't want to inherit someone else's failed work and then go, "Yeah, you're my guy as well." It just doesn't look that good.
Work. I don't believe it as failed work, right? Personally, the fact that he whatever happened to him and what he did, that's wrong. Okay, but I wouldn't class his work as failed work. Failed as a director of football. His record his record at Juventus and record at Spurs, when you look at the majority of the team, there's still a lot of those players still there. I'm just laughing at Jeff Bargery. He says, "Hi guys, just received my order from OK's Jersey. OK Jerseys. Not only did I get the 8% discount and free postage, they all sent me a free pair of football socks that would probably fit a baby giraffe."
Is that small or big? I don't know, because baby giraffes are pretty big. I don't know. Which is that? I'm not sure. As long as it all came, though. As long as it all came,
giraffe.
Okay.
I don't know. I funny enough, I ordered a pair of shoes from. I'm not sure. I've ordered a pair of shoes from China, and they kindly sent me 2 pairs of socks, and they were like about this big. I couldn't even get half of my foot in there. But anyway,
like those condoms in Thailand. You know?
Yeah, the small ones. Guys, if you're watching the show, and you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. And if you're here for the first time, please hit the subscribe button as we drive up to 6,000. Been going 3 months now. Got fantastic numbers for such a young channel. Couldn't do it without you. And if you're listening on audio, guys, I don't know what you do. I know you're out there listening on audio. Please hit follow, and please try and give us a review. I think we've been left 7 reviews, Sean, in 3 months. Shocking.
It's more than Spurs Talk Show's got, mate. I wouldn't worry about it, mate. You keep asking, bro. You keep asking.
I don't want to say this, by the way, but on the director of football conversation, because we've already got, an Arsenal man, ex-Arsenal man in Vinay, but could you see a world where they go to Edu?
No, Edu's forget Edu.
There's rumours that he's not, Forest he's fallen out with Nuno,
Listen, he's doing all of his clubs, so I don't think you're going to see anything. He's quite happy. Look at he's brought in three players from Brazil already. Igor Jesus, watch him. He's going to be a player. They brought 3 players in from Botafogo. He's doing Botafogo. He's doing Olympiacos. He's also doing Forest. And look at Forest's acquisitions. I would say they were pretty good. Nuno might not have liked them. Sean and I have had the discussion that we didn't think that they were Nuno signings. We had that conversation. But he's also got a deal where he's going to do a tie-in for multi-club ownership with John Textor.
That's been denied. But I think you're right, though, Johnny. I think it's you can officially deny as much as you want, but all of the evidence points to John Textor's getting involved there. Can I ask you guys this for the last 10 minutes of the show? Can we just let's assume that there's new faces coming in at various departments at Tottenham Hotspur. And guys, by the way, apologies to everyone that's here that's a non-Tottenham fan. I did make the thumbnail clear. This is the topic of today, but tomorrow we'll get back to other things, obviously. Do you think that when Daniel Levy was asked about multi-club ownership, and he said on the Gary Neville interview, and he said he thinks it's unsustainable, right? And he didn't particularly like it. It surprised me and it annoyed me in equal measure because first and foremost, those guys, ENIC, were the people that were the kind of the groundbreakers, or relatively so, the groundbreakers on that whole sort of topic. And then they were forced to sell, obviously, because of the rules at the time. Now you're seeing Liverpool buying Getafe. You're seeing Burnley buying Espanyol. You know that there's probably truth, as Johnny was just saying, about John Textor and Marinakis doing a team up, etc. Chelsea's method of the way that they use Blue Code to work out Strasbourg's situation, it's kind of revolutionized the early adoption of multi-club ownership models. Traditionally, multi-club ownership models are a fucking pain in the arse when you plug in 1 team, 2 teams, 3 teams. But when you get to 4, 5, 6 and beyond, like Red Bull, like City Football Group, like MCP Capital, it becomes a little bit easier, and the template and the value and the profit, the probabilities of success and all those things become templatable and easy to shift in. With the fact that Blue Co has done something, just the way that Tottenham are looking now and realizing that everybody else is copying their model with stadiums, you can see Liverpool and that are probably going to copy Chelsea's model of doing early adoption of MCOs. Under a new Tottenham ownership model, under a new Tottenham investor model, do you think that there's a good chance that within 24 months that Tottenham will also have bought their first MCO team and start to do the sorts of things that Chelsea are doing now, and probably those other teams are going to do in the near future?
I think it's maybe. I think what is more unlikely for me, to be honest, is that we join an existing one, or we get an owner that already owns another club. I know Johnny maybe talks about QSI, but I think if that was to happen, they'd have to exit out of PSG because of the clash, obviously. And I think because of the price point at which we are at, it would be difficult for us to be purchased by someone that owns another club already, unless it was like a QSI that is obviously hugely wealthy. Who's to say, though, whoever becomes the owner to do that in the future? Maybe. Yes, go on, mate.
I was just going to say, if they took a 10% stake and started to dilute their stake, which currently stands at 30% or just under because they've already diluted, could you not see a situation where they dilute to 10% of PSG as they start to increase once they get to that 10%, to increase above the 10% for Spurs?
Yeah, you could. I mean, I think at PSG they're 87.5 at the moment because they sold 12.5 to Arctus Partners back in December 2023, I think. So, you could see that, but there would be a point at which they'd have to do it sort of strategically, wouldn't they? So that you don't have that issue where you're in the same competition. But yeah, maybe. I think the problem for them selling PSG is it's similar to the conversation we're having about finding the right buyer for us. Is PSG's value is massive now because their revenue is massive, but one of the reasons they want out is because of those issues in terms of the stadium and the TV rights. And so, is another owner going to want to come in at what are they valued at 4 or 5 billion probably, just because of the revenue multiple?
PSG.
So yeah.
Yes, it's interesting though.
What about QIA?
Right, what about QIA? PSG's valuation is probably predicated on the revenue that they currently have.
Yes.
But the fact that there's all these problems with regards media rights in France, and also the fact that there's no stadium. If you're looking at the valuation model, as Johnny said earlier, as you're looking at the valuation models for future growth, is the revenue baked in a little bit? Like, is there massive ceilings on regards future growth? And so I don't know whether or not PSG would be. I don't know. Johnny mentioned earlier about their fashion line. I didn't know anything about that. But if they're basically their revenues are kind of ceilinged by they're constant exposure to the Champions League. But in terms of ceilings, in terms of like how high can they go without the access to a stadium and all that stuff, probably quite limited, I think. So I don't know if like the current revenues versus the future revenues and the opportunity cost is quite in line with a team in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think when Arctos came in, which was December 2023, which obviously was pre some of this French TV rights issues as well, to be fair, because some of that is a little bit more recent. They came in at 12.5%, which valued PSG at 4.25 billion euros. So call that 3.6 billion pounds. So, and obviously they've had revenue growth since then. So they're probably still, revenue's gone up. You've got those other issues you talk about. So they're probably still in the ballpark. You'd think of 3.5 billion, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but in terms of the upside, what I'm talking about, like think about like.
I agree.
Nvidia might have the same revenues as Qualcomm. It's a nonsense example.
I completely get it.
Two random companies, right? Their revenues might be like this, but in terms of the scope of the scale, it's not the same. I know you. Yeah, just for the purposes of the audience. And what were you saying, Johnny? Was it QIA you mentioned, mate?
Yeah, I just. I mean, look, if everyone else can get round it, QIA is the big daddy. QIS is just a subsidiary of QIA. So I'm sure some shithousery could be done if they wanted to get involved with one of their other subsidiaries, if necessary, to temporarily hold power until they got out of PSG, if possible. Listen, I'm just looking for possibilities here. You know, just QSI just seems to be the perfect, partner.
I would imagine that looking at what happened with Crystal Palace and Lyon, looking what might have happened with Manchester United and is it Montpellier? Who's the other team? I forget that Jim Ratcliffe owns. Who's the other one that he owns?
Nice.
Oh, Nice. Sorry, that's it.
Nice.
Yeah, and then looking at the various potential roadblocks and the fact that you're maybe about to walk into a situation where the government are going to put in like a regulator of sport. Are they going to sit there and read the room right now, looking at the kind of various, not to get into it, but the hot potatoes of politics in football, politics in the UK? It would just be so Spursy that Tottenham were to try to finally get hold of an investor that might come in with a small minority with the intention to take over gradually, but that happens to be a team that already has ownership in Europe, and therefore you have those problems potentially with the conflict of interest if they were to meet in the Champions League, or even with the Stavely thing, if it's more Saudi-based rather than Qatar-based, is there going to be some situation whereby they're going to figure out that actually this the PI, even though it's not the PIF fund, it's just wealthy investors, but it all kind of goes back to the same overarching narrative. I remember hearing about like Abu Dhabi, for example. People were saying when the 115 charges were first brought around, I remember hearing people that were knowledgeable on the topic saying they're going to make out like these third-party transactions. This was before the legal challenge. That these third-party transactions have nothing to do with Abu Dhabi, the royal family, but actually that the legal precedent in those countries where they have royal families is that they are all ultimately owned by the royal family, regardless. So, I just worry a little bit whether or not the optics of a direct investment from someone like QSI or QIA would be difficult to sell in a political environment with regards the very near coming future iteration of a regulator for sport.
It's sod's law that they make the rules, as we discussed before, much more stringent, as well on this type of stuff. As soon as we feel like we've finally got that golden ticket to unlimited money and maybe the rules will become more stringent, or as you say, they'll fail the owners and directors test or something. But be very Spursy.
What are you saying, Johnny?
I was just saying the Kicks TV. Can you hear that lot in the background, like screaming? Kicks TV is saying that PSG's operating income is $111 million. I'm sure that's not their total income. I'm more than positive of it, just from the winning the Champions League. Kicks TV said their operating income is 111 million.
Minus 111. That can't be true.
Minus. Sorry, that can't be right. That can't be right.
Operating profit before interest and tax.
They're probably making an operating loss or something, can't they?
Yeah. I mean, they look other than the Champions League and their clothing brand, which is global. It's global.
I'm going to go and check out this clothing brand, Johnny. I know you're a man about a fashionable. I see
people walking around with the PSG. No, I mean, I see, a lot of people walking around with the PSG kit on that don't support PSG. PSG Jordan and so on and so forth. Seems kind of weird to me, but that's what it is. No, listen, I think Spurs, we have to wait and see how it plays out. But I think it's exciting times, basically. But, anyone expecting everything to happen in 5 minutes, you need to chill out. But I definitely think that there's money coming in for naming rights and or money. Because 100 million doesn't touch the sides. It's a fart in the ocean. It really is.
Yeah, and that's again, not to go over it, but the point I made on the last show was, if there's any truth to this theory that I have, which is it's a little bit of a sandbagging, a little bit of the Lewis children coming in going, we don't want to let this go. We want to take over. We want to be more in charge. We've got the same vibes as the fans. We want to see more ambition, all this stuff. And that the way to kind of PR that whole exercise is to sort of make out like, despite the fact we've been in charge for a long time, it's been Daniel that has been, been essentially curtailing the ambition. And John, I think you said to me on the phone earlier, and I think I've read it before as well, that basically the children of the Lewis family, they're not that au fait with Daniel, right? Like they don't rate him as much, and the relationship between them and him might not be as close as him and Joe. Then that's all well and good. But if you're sitting there going, well, how do we get a clean slate whilst also still being the owners? Let's throw him under the bus. Let's do this thought experiment. Let's somewhat use the media to talk a little bit about how the fact that he's done this and done that, and it's not our intention. And now he's out of the way, and the kids are in charge. All we got to do now is throw them some cake, right? Let them eat cake. And they think that 100 million quid is going to do that. 100 million quid doesn't touch the sides. It doesn't even replace the 125 million that the property side took out of the club in the last 3 years, right? So they need to go fish a little bit harder if they really want to kind of suggest that things are changing and that the kids are now in charge. Don't worry, everything's back on, and ambition is now the run of the sort of motif of the day. You need a lot more than 100 million quid to make me sit up and say, all right, I'm interested in what they've got to say.
What's this Connie was saying about the City and the Premier League have settled on the APT rules? Okay.
Yeah, so just saw it pop up. So just something non-Spurs for anyone that was getting bored of the Spurs chat. So it looks like City in the Premier League.
It is a non-Spurs channel, funny
enough. City and the Premier League have settled their dispute over the league's associated party transaction rules. City says it accepts the current APT rules are valid and binding. More to follow, but it's the Man City have put a statement out. Sean, if you want to put it up, yeah.
Premier League and Man City have reached a settlement in relation to the arbitration.
How many points?
So they've terminated the proceedings as a result. This settlement brings to an end the dispute between the parties regarding the APT rules. They'd already won the appeal, though. As part of this settlement, Man City accepts that the current APT rules are valid and binding. It has been agreed that neither the Premier League... So on that, that's fucking interesting, though. That's a whole nother story. On that basis, they can no longer carry on doing what they were doing before. And that's fine because they already kind of moved away from that for them. But what that possibly means is that the other side of the coin, which was their whole argument regarding APT rules being unlawful, was one that it broke it broke commercial law, but also that they gave the example that if it's good for the goose, it has to be good for the gander. And how is it that they are not allowed to do this, but Arsenal are allowed to take zero or near zero interest rate loans that do not reflect commercial market rates? So if they've accepted this, does that then mean that everybody else is doing the other thing that they used as the reason to say that the whole thing was illegal in the first place? Does that now mean that any owners that want to dump loans into their club have to also do it at market rates? Otherwise, they will be in breach of the things that Man City were in breach of there.
What's great about this, Sean, is the fact that, again, the Premier League and all of them, it's always after the horse is bolted, right? Sorry about the noise. The bus is finally going. It's after the horse is bolted. Yes, we agree that it was wrong. We uphold it. And we won't do it again, even though we've been doing it for years and years and years and earned, hundreds of millions of pounds. But we know right now that the Cronkies have been lending Arsenal money at ridiculously low interest rates. How do you think they did the Eze deal? How do you think they did 275 million pounds of net deals without breaking any rules or PSR or anything? Yeah, but I mean, is that really going to affect Arsenal? Or is that just saying Man City saying, yeah, sorry.
Future loans, possibly future loans. The whole point of the Man City used them as an example, saying how can it be okay for one, not the other? And that's what we were talking about, Johnny. We spoke about this for ages, mate. Like the Premier League turned around and went, actually, you're probably right. But rather than saying that neither are okay, they ended up saying that both are okay. And so now they finally got round to saying so if Man City are acknowledging that side of it, then surely that means that future loans from owners to clubs at near zero interest rates, if the market doesn't suggest that's okay, then that is something that the Premier League can go after.
And
All
the thing
that does
is
is fuck over
UEFA have had
everybody else
this.
that's coming.
UEFA have already got
But
this,
sure.
right? So for the purposes of the UEFA rules, they do, the Kroenke loan, for example, they put a deemed interest rate on it for the purposes of working through the. It's just another example where the Premier League was behind again, and these inconsistencies in the rules again. It's just, So to be honest, it's not actually going to have a material impact, particularly because for someone like Arsenal, but it's just again just shows the nonsense of the rules, doesn't it?
Look, I just think personally, it's every single time they allowed Chelsea to break the rules, they allowed Manchester City to break the rules, let them go. When everyone else looked at joining in, they closed the gate and said, no, this can't happen anymore. Well, it's too late. It's too bloody late. They're all the way down the track. Chelsea breaking all the rules with loaning players out. Now we've got the multi-club ownership. Now we've got selling, the women's football team to yourself, the hotel to yourself, the catering staff to yourself. It's becoming an absolute farce. And, Arsenal, as I said, only managed to do this deal due to the generosity of the Kroenkes having billions of...
Oh,
we lost it.
Gone again. Give him a second. You back?
Sorry, I think I cut out there. Yeah, but it's just a farce. They're giving them the money at almost zero interest rate, enabling them to do deals where other clubs have to finance properly. And it's not fair market value, is it? It's not fair market value, thus giving them an advantage. I
wonder whether or not that. Do you reckon that the fact that they've now acknowledged that the rules are fine, does that mean that the Premier League can then go after? Like, the only reason they couldn't go after those things previously is because. And also, listen. I mean, I don't know, but I think that Manchester City's lawyers are probably sitting there going, "Oh, yeah, we'll acknowledge it. It's fine, no problem. We don't need those sorts of things in the future." But so we won't take it any further. We won't challenge the legality of it, and therefore, on that basis, they can then turn their attention and go after clubs, not necessarily Arsenal, but clubs that might want to do the same thing. And then they would have to then challenge the Premier League in court and kick the can down the road. Either way, it just feels like it's just another big kerfuffle over nothing. And I guess the other part is how much of the 115 charges that the investigation of which started well before the APT thing, and that hasn't been settled yet. So it makes you wonder whether or not that part of this particular settlement was also a back scratch with regards to the 115 or whatever it is, 130 charges.
I mean, I remember when Stefan Borson, he wrote a really good piece on this whole case and whether it was really worth it, etc. And he landed on the same place, but he thinks it's just I think it's, to your point, it's probably just a time buying exercise to some extent, isn't it? You wrap up another case, it's more, and then it just delays the decision on the 115 charges. I don't think there's necessarily a read across to what the outcome of the verdict will be as a result of this, but I think it's just a time buying exercise.
Yeah. Johnny, final thoughts, mate? I'll do the super chats.
Go on, do the super chats and I'll have a think.
All right, nice. Daniel Phil, big up to you, mate. Super sticker from you. Choo choo to you, buddy. Appreciate you very much. Blake L, also super sticker from you, my man. Choo choo to you as well, buddy. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate all of your support, guys. Ulrika Johnson's back in with another one. Any rumours on Levy's severance package? Is it big? But you'd like to know that, Ulrika, wouldn't you? I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. I haven't seen anything about it. I don't know if we'll ever get to know. Maybe it will be announced as an what do they call it? A exceptional cost or something in next year, or it would be the 26, 27 season. They'll have to announce it.
There will need to be something in the accounts about it. Yeah,
you won't see it for 2 years though, and it'll be long forgotten by then. And appreciate you very much. And then Danny Kiriakou has come in. With I don't know, is that a sign of gratitude or a sly dig, Johnny? Thank you for using my example I sent you, Johnny. He's claiming credit for something you spoke about. I'm not sure what happened there.
Probably about PSG, but the fact that I was talking about PSG and you gave me the 10%, figure sold. I knew that they were diluted. I didn't know the exact amount that they had diluted. But QSI is something I've been talking about for a long time. We shall see anyway. We shall see. We shall see.
I thought at the top of the show, someone said to me, Sean, you're saying exactly what Simon Jordan said on TalkSport this morning. Like, listen, I love the fact that people have always referred to me as a poor man, Simon Jordan. And I do appreciate the fact that Simon and I are often saying the same sort of things regarding, but I can guarantee you 100% that this morning I was nursing a horrendous wedding hangover. So I didn't see Simon Jordan's take this morning, but if we were saying the same thing, then yeah, I appreciate the fact that he must listen to the Spurs talk show. We're going to spin it that way. Lads, if there's any final thoughts, Johnny, or we can round off, my man.
No, I just, listen, guys, it's all about opinions here, right? Because basically we have to fill in the void. The void is there's no news other than what they're basically decided to tell us. I don't believe that Daniel Levy has gone to the lying on a beach somewhere doing nothing, right? I believe he's still involved with Enoch. His son is still on the board at Tavistock. And I believe he's involved in the club as a 29% shareholder. He might not be fronting the football, but the common goal and his common goal will 100% be to get his money. Whether that's selling his stake, like Connor suggested, or a complete sale. But anything that increases the value of his holding. The only thing is, don't feel sorry for him that he's no longer getting his £5 million a year fee that he took for himself, but I'm sure he's getting remunerated somewhere along the line, so I wouldn't feel too sorry for him. Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Tomorrow we will be going back to Football Inc. Where we'll be talking about all things football. But today's news about possible takeovers or not possible takeovers was the main news out there today.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Connor, I'll come to you for last words, mate. But Levy Nomics 1882, people keep asking you, mate, are you going to update your handle, or are you just going to leave it there as the genesis of your brand, even though he's gone now, not forgotten?
Yeah, I think I might. You know, I've got the legacy of it now, haven't I? And I can, I could take my little bit of personal credit for him going.
Wouldn't be the first time on Twitter that happens, mate. Maybe you should change your next name to Change for Levy or something. You know, see if that goes down well.
Now. But no, yeah. Thank you for having me on. Am I your first actual guest on Football Inc?
You've been on the channel before.
I came on for a bit, didn't I? Before, yeah.
But you are your first official guest. Yeah, 100%. We've had people come on to do the predictions and things.
I feel very privileged. Thank you for having me on.
Appreciate you, mate. Johnny, when are you back, buddy? How much time you got left with that background?
I come back on Wednesday, so there'll be no show Wednesday. Another show tomorrow, where we'll be, as I said, talking about all sorts of things. There's quite a lot of football chat actually out there. Just to throw in, Gyökeres could be missing some of Arsenal's season because he's a witness in a big court case taking place in Sweden. Apparently, we'll have to look more into that one for tomorrow's show. But there's always football stuff to chat on. So if you come here from other clubs today and got all Spurs, apologise for that, but tomorrow we'll be back to talking all things, all clubs to do with football.
We'll talk more about the Man City thing as well, right? Because I think that one's going to have a little bit of legs. And just quickly, if you were interested, PSG on the over the weekend, I think they announced, if I'm not mistaken, that they lost Ousmane Dembele and also one of it was it Bradley Barcola or one of the other guys from they're out for like 8 to 10 weeks, and Tottenham obviously play them in the Champions League before that happens. So a little bit of an edge there. But guys, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone. There's been 850 people here the whole show. Really appreciate you all. Please do, if you're looking for jerseys, go to okjersey.com. 8% discount at checkout. Code FINC, F-I-N-C. Appreciate you all. Listen, we're all speculating on our various takes on what's going to happen. Who knows how it's going to end up, but it will be interesting, and we will bring it to your attention when it drops. See you tomorrow, guys. And if you are a Spurs fan, Spurs 5 is on tonight at 8 p.m. Expect fireworks. There's always some. There's always an argument or two. That's what we do there. Jonny, thanks so much. Connor, thank you so much. Thank you for the super chats and the super stickers and the members' loyalty and everyone else. See you tomorrow. Take care. And as always, oh, wait a minute. Sorry, I ended it badly. Jonny, it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from him.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.